You know it when you hear it, and you know it when you hear it. You know it, and you know it when you hear it, and you know it when you hear it, and you know it, when you hear it, and you know it when you hear it. That I'm flowing when you hear it. I'm the realest and a realist, so I'm cautious, but I'm fearless. I push the Tesla down the PCH, nigga. No boo in Malibu, ain't even clean my plate, nigga. Since last you heard from me, I've been in Texas and I doubled the necklace. Pockets fatter than precious. I've been in a jam of 3. I've been in Houston where if I slam a jam of tees, I've been at the Alamo, handled like I'm Alimo. I've been outsourced to every outpost. I'm talking Brownsville, Southmost, and who showed out mo? Yeah, and who showed out mo? Yeah. So let's start that show. Yeah, let's start that show. And you know it.
Raheem, there is turmoil in the world. There is conflict in the world. These are tough times. There is misinformation online. People don't know what they're allowed to say. They don't know what they're allowed to think. These are indeed tough times, Raheem, and I, Shadwick, am here to sort of walk you through it. We can get through it together if we try. My name is Shadwick. I am your host. This is And You Know It. Raheem is here with me as always. The entire team is here with me. Welcome back to And You Know It. And I'm going to go ahead and get right down to business, Raheem. Again, people don't know what to think. They don't know what to say. There's a lot of talk about the word terrorist recently and whether or not that word is appropriate and is it coded language. But you know what, Raheem? I'm here to settle any debates or any conversations that have been raging. Yes, terrorist is appropriate for Jada Pinkett Smith.
It's an evil world we live in.
Someone has to stop Will's wife or Will's whatever that is to him. But we'll get to that later, Raheem. There is actually more pressing business that I'm here to discuss with the folks, Raheem. There is war raging still in Europe. Last we spoke, there was a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We know that is, of course, merely Ukraine is acting as a proxy for NATO, which is essentially a proxy for these United States of America. We already covered that. But now there's new conflict, Raheem. There's new conflict in the region of North Africa that has been renamed and dubbed the Middle East by the British. There's war in the Holy Land, Raheem. Israel has declared war against Hamas, I suppose. And I suppose that is what we are here to discuss. It gets tough to tell at a certain point who exactly or what parties exactly are at war, Raheem. It gets tough to tell. But so let's start here. On October 7th, there was an attack by the Palestinian group Hamas. This is a militarized Palestinian group that has been described by our United States government as a terrorist organization. That is not my characterization. That is just the official characterization from the United States government. But so Hamas attacked Israeli civilians, and there was murder, there was rape, there were atrocities committed. So, Raheem, do we have the sound of President Joe Biden talking about the events of October 7th and the United States' position on Israel's response?
We must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse.
So, Raheem, I am not here to talk about the history of Israel and Palestine, or how it is that a group of European Jews somehow have land in what seems to me to be North Africa, or how even Arabs would have land in what seems to me to be North Africa, or how any of that came to be, or even how Israel became a state, or how that land was taken from those that were there before the state of Israel was established. I am not here to discuss any of those things because I don't see how that. And number one, I don't know enough about it. I don't see that as being a productive conversation in any way. I'm coming at this from the standpoint of I'm an American citizen, and really as a Black American, but just as an American, I'm listening to our Commander-in-Chief talk tough. I'm listening to him, take a strong position, very strong position. He said, we stand with Israel. He made it very clear. And, I fully understand post, October 7th and, just hearing about what happened and the number of Israelis that were killed. I believe the number is in excess of 1,300. You can fact check me, but it was a lot. There were a lot of Israelis killed. There were Americans killed. So of course I understand the need for, or at least the desire for, some sort of response. I understand that desire. That's how this sort of a thing works, especially when you're talking about two sides that have a history of just brutality towards one another. So where I come into this is, why exactly are so many of my tax dollars as an American citizen going to fund Israel's defense from Hamas? I don't, because really what you're saying is, listen, there's the Gaza Strip, and there's apparently that's an area so densely populated. It's kind of like the population density of something like Philadelphia, right? So like think of like a major American city, densely populated. These people are living on top of each other, right? So they need help financially to defend themselves against not a nation state, but a terrorist group. Seems a little odd to me. I don't really understand how and why that seems to be the case. But then going forward, so now there's talk of, well, a part of that response in addition. So, look, Israel's been just destroying the Gaza Strip, just launching, an all-out air assault. Not, look, that's not even really what I'm here to talk about either. But they're talking about a ground war as well, and the need for, and the imminent nature of an Israeli ground offensive into Gaza. And so, look, there were reports, and we're going to get into some of this stuff, but there were reports that, in preparation for the ground assault, that Israel was getting the word. I don't know how all this stuff works, but somehow Israel was letting the citizens of Gaza know that they needed to evacuate. And there's reports that as some citizens were attempting to evacuate, that Israel bombed or maybe shelled those who were evacuating. Israel denies that. Right, but there's video on social media that seems to sort of make Israel's denial a little hard to believe. But you know what? I got to be honest though, Raheem. Let me be frank. I don't really watch a lot. I can't watch this content, these videos that y'all are sending, and this stuff from Palestine. I kind of skim through it, but I can't really watch it because it's too real. It's too real. It's not a movie. Like, that blood is real. That shrapnel is real. These dismembered children are real.
It's an evil world we live in.
I can't spend a lot of time. I have to protect my brain. And I have to protect myself from certain images. But, I know I'm different in that regard because, true crime is all the rage. True crime books, true crime podcasts are number one. If I started talking about the murder of Adnan Syed, I'd go number one, Raheem. We know this, but the other thing is that, I can't sit here and say that, so if I'm not looking at these videos, I don't want to say, well, no, they did bomb them. But, what I do know is there's a lot of misinformation going on right now. And that's what I'm gathering, because I do, of course, do a lot of reading, as we all know. But with that reading, I'm noticing that there is, listen, Israeli intelligence is legendary, for its ability to affect public sentiment, for propaganda. And we know war is propaganda. Once you say you're waging war, I know that you're willing to say and do anything. So, but speaking of misinformation, and we're talking about President Joseph R. Biden. So check this out. So Raheem, we have some sound of Biden again talking about what happened on 10/7 in Israel, where Hamas, just slaughtered Israeli innocents. But Joe Biden had some information that is questionable.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children. I never thought I'd ever. Anyway,
So Joe Biden is referring to reports that Hamas was beheading or were beheading children as a part of the October 7th, the civilian slaughter that took place. And, it turns out the White House had to walk that back a few days later. They had to walk back Joe Biden saying that he saw pictures of children being beheaded, because much like me, he clearly was not looking at any of this content. There's no way that Joe Biden was watching or looking at or looking at some of these videos, because he's saying he saw something that he in fact did not see. Now, did Hamas rape? Did they murder? Did they maim? Yes, but my point is that there's a lot of misinformation. And again, war is propaganda. It was, so, when we're talking about this stuff, it's hard to know what's true and what's not. Listen, if Joe Biden doesn't have information that's accurate, well, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, maybe trusting the, on the ground, raw, grassroots style footage that is coming out of Gaza might be more accurate to paint a picture of what's going on. And so this is why, for me, sitting here, from far away as an American, just watching and sort of assessing what is going on, I know what Joe Biden said. I know he said that there is, there's no justification for terrorism.
There's no
I do agree with
justification for
that.
terrorism. There's no excuse.
There's also no justification for indiscriminately destroying a densely populated area. There's no justification for lobbing missiles towards people that had nothing to do with whatever you're upset at. And for the United States, and this is why, so it's not, again, me, it's never a Democrat Republican thing. I don't look at things as blue and red. I don't care about it. I don't look at stuff as black and white, blue and red. None of these colors that y'all want to force me to abide by can you make me live under. It's all of y'all. Okay, it's all of them. It's all American politicians. Not all. It's not all, because you have some that don't let me get carried away, Raheem. You know how I can get. But I'm talking about the top American politicians. I'm talking about the policymakers of the day. Joe Biden. I'm talking about Republicans. There's this idea that we have to allow and support any response that Israel sees fit under the guise of defense. But Raheem, allow me to say clearly and plainly, as an American citizen, I do not support what is happening in Gaza right now. I don't want my tax dollars going to it. I actually would prefer if the United States would put a stop to it rather than enable. And speaking of enabling or enablers, Raheem, senatorial craven and cowardly lion of South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, was on Meet the Press this past Sunday. And I want to play a little bit of what Lindsey had to say, because this is the type of rhetoric that helps no one and only instigates larger conflict. Raheem, if you would.
I do want to ask you about the crisis on the ground in Gaza. And you have said that Israel should go into Gaza and, quote, level the place
if necessary.
Are you calling for the full-scale destruction of Gaza despite what could be untold civilian deaths?
No, I'm calling for the destruction of Hamas. Israel is trying to find a safe place for Gaza residents. Hamas is trying to stop them from leaving. Israel is trying to encourage them to leave. Our friends in Egypt, you have it in your power to give Gaza residents a safe place. This will be a World War II type operation where you go in and destroy the regime, Hamas, and over time replace it with something else like we did Germany and Japan. But the Israelis do not want to kill innocent people. They're going to turn the water on. Every death going forward, I blame on Hamas, not Israel.
Well, and of course...
So, Raheem, Lindsey Graham, senatorial craven, this coward, Lindsey Graham, has the nerve to be talking about leveling places. This is a man who, on the night of January 6th, Raheem, I remember this so clearly. I remember where I was. I remember I remember his spineless sort of slither up to the lectern to say,
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way. Oh, my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful.
But once this craven realized that his fundraising would dry up when his Trump support dried up, he of course changed his tune, Raheem. He changed his tune. Now he supports Trump in 2024.
It's an evil world we live in.
Man, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Count me out. Count me out. Enough is enough. Man, I swear, man, you got to find a way to laugh at this stuff because it's ridiculous. But the problem is it's also very real. So when we head back to the conversation, about, Gaza and just the idea that Israel is destroying and murdering so many people. And up until maybe, I don't know, tonight probably, Raheem, it was hard to acknowledge that publicly without facing some sort of backlash. But things have changed because Lindsey Graham said that all deaths going forward he blames on Hamas. But things have changed because most recently, Raheem, and look, by the time you hear this, some more stuff may have come out. But most recently, Raheem, can you play some sound of the most recent information? This is part of the reason I jumped on here.
Hey guys, yeah, some devastating news out of Gaza there. We are learning that a hospital was struck. This is the Baptist hospital in Gaza City, and we are learning at least 200 to 300 people may have been killed in that single strike. The death toll expected to rise. These are people who were likely being treated for injuries related to the war already. We're seeing images emerging now on social media of the hospital in flames, people running around.
It's an evil world we live in.
Doctors rushing to get patients out and get patients help, and it's looking like a totally devastating situation there. We're seeing reports as well that as many as 5,000 people may have been sheltering in place at that hospital. We've talked about this as the IDF has called for civilians to flee the north of Gaza and Gaza City. A lot of these people have nowhere to go, and so they've been going to places like hospitals and like schools to take shelter. And so it's very likely that there were people sheltering in place at that hospital. We don't know just how many people. We don't know if that's the case, but we are starting to see reports there emerging that people were there looking for shelter and certainly being treated for injuries. We're expecting, again, that the death toll to rise, but this could be the deadliest strike of the war so far.
You know, as targeting a hospital, and Israel does have most of its weapons have guiding systems. It is without justification unless.
So officials are saying that 500 people were killed in a hospital in Gaza after there was an airstrike. So at first, Raheem, and we were talking about misinformation, remember, at first, when this story came out to my iPhone and I'm sure yours, it said there was an Israeli airstrike on a hospital. That's clearly what was said. It was a confirmed report of an Israeli airstrike on a hospital. And then to that end, Raheem, there was also on the platform formerly known as Twitter, that I'm not going to call that letter. I'm just going to call it Elon's play toy or whatever you want to call it. But on what used to be called Twitter, there were spokespeople for the Israeli, or just for the Israeli government, I suppose, confirming those reports and taking credit. It wasn't until there was, I'm not sure, I don't know what, but there's been a turn, and Israel now denies it. And in fact, Israel says that Hamas is responsible for bombing this, bombing this hospital, which when we start talking about this, Raheem, see, this is where it starts to get to a point where I don't really care what y'all arguing about. I don't care what happened before. I don't care what y'all arguing about. This is so barbaric that, number one, the United States needs to stay out of it. I don't want my money wrapped up in this. I don't want any troops wrapped up in this. And when you have people like that coward Lindsey Graham talking about, well, and he went on, I'm debating whether I should play the clip. I think y'all believe me, but he went on to essentially threaten Iran because, he goes on to talk about how the group Hezbollah could potentially wage some sort of an offensive against Israel. And if that were to be done, Hezbollah, in Lindsey Graham's word, is a proxy for Iran. And he's telling Iran that the United States is going to come for them if indeed that happened. And the level of escalation that these people are willing to play with when this stuff, man, these people fighting about old books. They fighting about, land that may or may not belong to any of them. Come on, man. This is stuff that goes back millennia. Goes back before the Ottomans and the Turks, and it goes back so far that any understanding by the folks living in this moment is, to miss a large part of it, even if you are of that region or of one of these ethnicities, man. But, when y'all start talking about bombing hospitals and stuff, man, talk about no justification. There just isn't one.
There's no excuse.
And as Lindsey Graham said, that's where I can't say anything other than American politicians have a duty to keep us out of an escalated conflict. Because listen, man, this is how things start. And this is how, so then now Iran's in it. And then that means that, one is going to wage war as a result of this. We live in an era of tremendous capabilities from a weaponry standpoint. And we can't afford to have politicians playing around like this. People like Joe Biden, people like Lindsey Graham, people like Benjamin Netanyahu, people who are either guided by vengeance, guided by anger, guided by some sort of, or the other, I guess there's the other thing, Raheem, the other thing I want to talk about, what this is really about. Because, I said, well, it's about a book or it's about, different religions and stuff. But from the American perspective, from the perspective of a United States citizen, why does our country, you might ask yourself, why does our country feel the need to get so involved in this or involved in any of these conflicts, even Ukraine? And it's because the number one job of the American president and really the American government is to maintain the current world order. So understand what I'm saying. This is not conspiracy or conspiratorial in any way. I'm not talking about the New World Order or the Bilderbergs or any of this kind of stuff. I'm talking about maintaining the current world order with which the order that America currently stands atop of. any change in that, any restructuring in that comes with so much death, so much untold suffering. And then, in fact, living in the nuclear age could mean the end of humanity. And I'm not fear-mongering. I'm just telling you, a change in the world order at this point is cause for people to go to the mattresses. I don't even like speaking certain things or uttering them out of my mouth, but this is why when you hear things, so there's been so much else going on, Raheem, because when you hear things, I don't know if you read these reports of all these nations trying to join and form some sort of a new dominant currency that can rival the dollar. This is about changing the world order. This is why you can't allow Russia to simply knock over Ukraine, because that causes the potential for a change in the world order. Because if Russia can simply take Ukraine, what's to stop China from simply taking back Taiwan that it says rightfully belongs to it? The answer, of course, is nothing. So listen, we could talk about supporting Israel, and really what we're talking about is supporting the current world order. And to be honest, I'm in favor of that. But I'm not in favor of a blank check to barbaric behavior, a blank check to bad behavior, which is what we have given the nation state of Israel at this time with statements like the one that Joe Biden made. You can't start this from any particular point. To start this at any particular point is to be arbitrary and capricious. To say that, I'm starting on October 7th or I'm starting in 1948, any of that is to be arbitrary. And you have to understand that. And acting as though that's not the case is only causing more pain and suffering to those who are affected. So I send my prayers, I send my thoughts, I send my love, and I send, I just hope everything could work out for the best, and I hope that we could avoid this conflict escalating anymore. But Raheem, I must admit, although I am fearless, I'm a little bit nervous in this situation, and you know it.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your governor speaking. Today's training evolution, dogfighting, taking on the corporate media.
I said, what in the world is up with Ron DeSantis? Hey, anybody know what's up with that guy? What's up with that guy? Everybody now. Hey, everybody.
Raheem, although Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a.k.a. Diet Trump, is essentially an afterthought right now in the Republican race for the nomination for the 2024 presidential run. Listen, man, he's not going to beat Trump, and I think Trump can go to jail safely and still beat Ron DeSantis. Right now, Trump's at about 55%, polling at about 55% of Republicans. Ron DeSantis is still in second place. He's at 17%, but I suspect that South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who's currently in third with 11%, is eventually going to probably settle into that second place spot, because Ron DeSantis, as I mentioned before, has a truly awful personality. He's just really awkward and weird, and people don't like him. So I'm going to probably stop following him and chronicling his moves now that he's not really as much of a threat as I thought he was going to be. But before I let the gold mine that is Ron DeSantis go, I just wanted to comment kind of on one of the things that he had going in the state of Florida. As we chronicled, I think on episode 1 of And You Know It, we were talking about, the war on education and the way that the right wing of this country tries to dominate and control history and what children can know in classrooms. You remember at the time it was critical race theory and all these things were scaring people and things like that, right? So In August, there was a story. Raheem, I got to sometimes catch up on some things that I missed. Please allow me this indulgence. But there was a story that the Florida State Board of Education had recently released a new history standard. And people didn't like it because there was some controversial language included, Raheem. So the language that was included in the Florida State Board of Education's new history standard reads as follows. Slaves, talking about people that are my color who were enslaved in this country for an extremely long time and turned into chattel and property. So just to be clear what we're talking about.
It's an evil world we live in.
Slaves develop skills in which... Oh, no, pardon me. I stumbled, Raheem. Let me start over because I want you to really hear this.
Look at my African-American over here. Look at him.
See, not reading what I saw. Okay, but anyway, it says slaves develop skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. Slaves develop skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. Raheem, people didn't like that. People didn't like the idea that I don't know what the right wing of this country's trying to say. Slaves somehow benefited from slavery. I guess that makes it all good then. I suppose that makes it all good. But what it did is it made me think of a top 5, Raheem. So we've got a new top 5 here on And You Know It. These are the top 5 benefits to slavery for the enslaved. You ready, Raheem? Number 5 on the list of the top 5 benefits to slavery for the enslaved: leathery, weather-hardened skin. The elements don't, at a certain point, you get almost like a jacket on you, and you don't have to worry as much about skin breakdown because it's already broken down to the point where there may not be any further breakdown possible. So, you got to understand, man, when you get to a certain point, things are all good. Number 4, Raheem, on the list of the top 5 benefits to slavery for the enslaved: no rent and no utilities. The N-word hates paying rent and is always late on the power bill. So think about this. Massa got you covered in this situation. That is a major benefit to those who are enslaved. Raheem, number 3 on the list of the top 5 benefits to slavery for the enslaved. Number 3 is a life free of tough decisions. Massa'll do it for you. Massa'll decide everything. All you got to do is just do your work, Charlie. You ain't got to think about nothing because I got it all for you. I'm doing all the thinking. You just do the working. Ain't that right? Okay. Number 2, free transcontinental travel. So think steerage class on the Titanic, in bondage, possibly, Raheem. Steerage class in bonding. That is a sick thought. Man, free transcontinental travel. But I suppose that is a benefit according to Governor Ron. But number 1 on the list of the top 5 benefits to slavery for the enslaved, Raheem: no awkward conversations with relatives. Slaves had the luxury, Raheem, of avoiding those Thanksgiving dinners, small talk situations where you don't have anything to say to your long lost cousin and you don't want to hear his mixtape and you don't want to loan him $5. And this is because, of course, their families were shipped as property from owner to owner without regard for relations.
What in the world is up with Ron DeSantis? Hey. Anybody know what's up with that guy? What's up with that guy? Everybody now. Hey, everybody.
So, Raheem, I want to leave the people with a parting shot in the style of Dick Schaap or Mike Lupica or, one of those real journalists back in the day. You know what I'm saying? We touched on Jada Pinkett at the top of the show, and I have a couple of proposals that I'd like to leave the audience with. Proposal number 1 is we have to start calling Will and Jada the Smith Pinketts as opposed to the Pinkett Smiths. Jada's name has to go last because she's proven herself to be. Jada has proven herself to be that nigga, boy. Jada is such an alpha and such a master manipulator that her name should have always gone second. She never was comfortable in second place, and she's shown that on this recent book tour. I'm not going to play any of her sound because it's not really, I think it's just been everywhere too much, but when you're Will Smith and you've been publicly cuckolded and emasculated, and only for us to find out that I suppose this woman hasn't, for all intents and purposes, been your wife for quite a while. And yet you allowed yourself to go to a red table and sit there with red eyes. And you slapped the greatest comedian of his generation on live TV.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of
the first line of your obituary, you changed it on a night where you wanted to tell someone to keep your wife's name out of their mouth. But my second proposal, Will, is this. In light of all that's happened and in light of all that is going on right now with alopecia and Tupac and August Alsina and separation and all of the above, I think it's about time, Will, that you tell Jada to keep your name out of her mouth. You might have to pop in the back of that bald head a little bit, but just as a little love tap. But I don't advocate violence of any kind. But maybe a save me one is appropriate for Jada Pinkett Smith because she's gone too far, Will. She needs to stop talking about you. She needs to keep your name out her mouth. Oh man, Raheem, that was something else, man. That was strangely cathartic to do, I must say, Raheem. Another episode of And You Know It in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Shadwick. Raheem is on the boards. We will be back. Man, I don't know, man. I'm busy these days, but we'll be back as soon as we can. Please reach out to me on Instagram, WICKD_OUT. Also, And You Know It Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You can email the show at aykipod@gmail.com. Couple other announcements. I Still Call It Joe Robbie is a project from SCW and Bree Polo. The 10-year anniversary has recently, just I think today, is that right, Raheem? Just today been re-released to Spotify, to Apple Music, to YouTube. So check out I Still Call It Joe Robbie. That's on there. You could always check out the song Dade County, which I think we played at the end of the last song. Man, Bree Polo and that SCW are on fire. The Joe Robbie boys. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you once again with a parting thought. Remember, of course, your life is perfect. If the bad were better, the good would be worse. SCW tell you that. I'm gonna holla at you. One. And you know.
And you know. And you know. Yeah. And you know one thing. And you know it when you hear it. I know niggas that are air it. Running the ferris on me, I give them clearance, homie. I was embarrassed, homie, to have two parents, homie. Hey, but they installed that wherewithal, I wear